Are they using the data to the benefit of you, your customer, or are they using it for the benefit of themselves? Granted, it's probably going to be a little of both, but what does the majority feel like? In that situation, where I feel like you were listening to me, no, I'm freaked out. I don't even want to go and click on that ad because it just doesn't feel right. But if you understand who I am, and whether it's purchasing history or just my engagement with your business, and you get smarter about me because of the data, and whether it is, hey, are you calling to pay your bill? Hey, I see you've been buying this thing over and over again. And to David's example, the next time I log into my favorite juice company down the street, it just says, hey, do you want to reorder this again and make it super easy for me? Yes, I feel good about that because I think they're trying to do what's best for me and not what's best for them.
Welcome back to No Hold Time. Brian Bremer, we're on with Eric Robeson and David Ariza. I'm going to pick again today. I want to talk about customer data. I think we haven't picked, we've sprinkled that in through a variety of things. We haven't really picked on that topic as a whole, like customer experience conversation. Man, data is important. And there is a lot of it. Do you remember maybe even 5-10 years ago, data was always kind of talked about, but it just wasn't.
You implement something, it was the last thing you thought of. Oh, reporting data, we probably should do something with that.
Oh man, we had so many conversations about it. I forgot to put that in the report. When I started here, I was just a report data person, and all I had was number of calls and number of minutes, and that was all that mattered now. So anyway, let's chat about data today, and specifically about. Let's all put our CXO hat on, Chief Experience Officer, that one, and talk about the varieties of data and customer experience and what matters, and how to use it, and what it tells you, and what you can do with it. So I'm going to give you an example that I talk about sometimes with cable companies. Like you know, I'm still a loyal subscriber to the plug. I have not unplugged yet. So I get lots of advertisements when I pause my DVR for things that I've watched in the past, or even if I've called in an order pay-per-view before, and now it's offering me again. It's that downstream effect. So let's just pick apart what that is, what that data set is, right? So they've got my name and number. They know what I watch. They know what I typically order. They know what my kids watch and when they watch it. And that is just the tip of the iceberg with that data. Like when you think about brands, I'm going to start with you, Eric. Like, it blows my mind how much data is out there, and we just even probably still don't use it all.
Yeah, and really only over the past, 5 years, have companies started to figure out how to centralize all that data. I mean, that was like first things first. In the past, there was a team that all they did was the .com work. It was all website information development, everything that went on that website. Then you had your contact center and the dispositioning that happened with agents. And then you may have had an IVR that had its own data source. Then you may have had, if it was a retail situation, what was the in-store experience like? But nobody was tying it together. It was sort of the unicorn of how do you tie together the breadcrumbs of an experience. So Brian, you've got the customer interaction data. How are they interacting with you? Whether it is .com, whether it is in-store, whether they're calling you. But then there's the product side of the data on how they're using the product. Like you said, for cable, what channels are they watching? How long are they watching for? What times of day are they watching? All of that information. And I think we're just now getting to the point where at least they can say we have it all put together. They don't necessarily know what to do with it all because it's so much, but at least they've got one repository where all that data sits.
Yeah, like even what commercials I didn't skip through.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, they've got so much of this stuff. So, David, I'm going to ask you a question about we in a previous episode we talked quite a bit about personalization, and data is the soul behind that, right?
Yeah.
When you think of your data as not a salesperson in this space, but a person of human, right? You, consumer. What are you comfortable with them knowing? Let's pick a brand. Let's pick a brand. Let's pick a retail company that you buy from on a regular basis. Don't use the hat one. Pick somebody else. Like what are you comfortable with them knowing about you and proactively using that data to get ahead of what?
What? I think as a consumer, I just understand and maybe don't appreciate or I'm okay with it. I just know that whatever information I put out there is going to be used by some brand, maybe not even the brand I'm using it to. That's just where we are at this point, right? So I just need to know. What I appreciate, though, is that we have rules and regulations, and most companies that I interact with follow it. Like you can always hit unsubscribe or stop, and that works for the most part. But I think I'm just not at peace, but I just understand that whatever information I'm putting out there whenever I subscribe to something is going to be used. I do appreciate whenever it's used for me, right? Here's a good example. There's a juice place by my house, Green Brothers, Charlotte. I log into the app, and I always get the same thing. I always get one of three things. Mm-hmm. And so it just says, do you want to order this again?
Yep.
Yes. Click, click. 30 seconds. I'm in and out. I order the fresh and so green every single time, and it takes 15 seconds. And that's part of the reason, like if I'm in a hurry and like I don't have time for breakfast or I'm really hungry, part of me going back to them is that they know who I am and will suggest what I'm going to order.
2 follow-up questions. Does the fresh and so green have grass in it? It sounds like it would.
It has kale. Okay. I don't know if
That's not really
it's
grass.
Technically grass.
The second question is, when you log into a website, and you get that cookies notification on the bottom of it, do you decline it or accept it?
If it's easy, I will click it and then hit minimal cookies.
Okay. So you're a multi-stepper?
Yeah, I am a because the same thing, right? I don't want all of my information being tracked, even though I know
do you believe it?
It is.
Not, yeah, say do you believe it?
Right, right. Even though it probably is anyways. So I appreciate when it's used for good, and I understand that it might be putting me down the line of like ordering the same thing every single time. But okay, that's fine. I'm okay with being predictable in some cases.
I think and I'll pick on you in a second, Eric. I think it wraps up a bit to your point that if it's used correctly, you feel so much better about it than the other direction, which is advertising and things that all of us care about, right? So when you call into a brand and they say, hi, Eric, it looks like you have a payment due, and you don't have to go through 7 menus to get there, and you get the task done, and it says, hey, I got the card on file, do you want to remember it? Like even that could scare people at some point because you've got credit card information floating in the world, but if it's used appropriately, you get your task done, it's so much quicker. And what other ideas and thoughts come to mind?
Let me have one, because I forgot about it and then I remembered, and now I'm going to forget. And so this is in theory, this isn't an application that we support, but we were recently with a bank, and they're talking about finding ways to provide better proactive services for their customers and, in turn, clearly growing their business as well. And in this case, a bank has most of your spending history, and maybe not mine because I mostly use a credit card, but let's just say that you make most of your purchases through a bank. They have the ability to understand where you're spending your money and what can they do with that, right? Like maybe you're spending a lot of money in a company that's public, and so they can reach out and say, hey, I see that you spent whatever $200 at this store last month. Clearly you support or you like that company. You have the ability to buy stock or trade and support that company even more, right? And so using that spend history, and we get back to like where that information, you have to maybe propose it to customers and say, hey, can we suggest these kind of services to you before, so they opt into it?
Yeah.
And I would.
Yeah.
Like that would be really cool if my bank said, hey, you spent this much money, and now with you can buy like partial shares. Maybe it's like you can round that purchase up to buy a partial share once a month or at the end of a month. It'd just be another way to take your history, your spend history as a consumer, and then the company offering additional services that I think I would like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think they were figuring out how do they get younger consumers, the younger generation, into money management, investing, and the idea there was, well, look, if this customer is already a customer of this company that they do business with, they're probably going to feel a little more comfortable putting their money there versus trading with a company they have no history with at all. So it was a way for folks to be able to dip their toes. But when you think of just data in general, it's David, you're kind of hinting towards, it's almost like there's an acceptance that just all my data is out there.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel good, but you've kind of accepted it. And Brian, to your question on, are you okay? What do you feel comfortable with them using it for? If I don't like to pick up a device and go somewhere on a website and it shows something I was just talking about.
I was going to bring that up.
I don't want you listening to every conversation. Yeah. That to me feels like this is for the greater good of that company versus me.
Yep.
So I think it's about how they're are they using the data to the benefit of you, your customer, or are they using it for the benefit of themselves? Granted, it's probably going to be a little of both, but what does the majority feel like? In that situation, where I feel like you were listening to me, no, I'm freaked out. I don't even want to go and click on that ad because it just doesn't feel right. But if you understand who I am, and whether it's purchasing history or just my engagement with your business, and you get smarter about me because of the data, and whether it is, hey, are you calling to pay your bill? Hey, I see you've been buying this thing over and over again. And to David's example, the next time I log into my favorite juice company down the street, it just says, hey, do you want to reorder this again and make it super easy for me? Yes, I feel good about that because I think they're trying to do what's best for me and not what's best for them.
Yeah.
I noticed in the last few weeks, my house has got Alexas all over it. And my kids and even me have asked it something, and now just in the recent, that's going, good afternoon, Brian. This is what's going on today, or here's the weather today. And I thought, I'm like, wow, okay. So then my daughter, who's 9, asked it, how do you know my name? And she replied, she goes, I know your name from recording your voice print. Now, I don't remember opting into this.
Whoa.
But I'm sure we did at some point along the way, because we click on every darn checkbox there is to get this stuff. But it took me back to think about this, and this is kind of why this topic came up. It took me back to think about, they have so much data on me that they know what my voice sounds like compared to my daughter on the same exact device in my house. And at first I was kind of weirded out by it, and now I'm just like, oh, that's where the world's going. I mean, we pitch it in our IVR and IVA discussions of it feels good sometimes to personalize things because it just feels better, and it makes the customer experience that much better. That you know me, you remember me concept is something we've preached about for years. And it felt a little weird with my child involved in that, but I guarantee that I somehow, some way opted into it because some lawyer would figure it out if I didn't.
And I guess it's always a good reminder that these devices in my house, they're hearing everything. They're always listening.
A few years ago, when the California privacy laws came around, I think most of us took a second thought into what was happening, like GDPR and in California, and there's a variety of other states out there that we as a brand, as a company, have to give you as a consumer all of the data we have on you if you ask for it. Mm-hmm. I don't know how many people are doing that, but that risk as a company was always like, oh, we have to make sure that we check every box when we store this stuff and understand how we're using it, because if some single consumer asks for it, and we have to be able to explain it all in detail. And I think that transparency is so important in today's day and age. All right, so let's pivot a little bit. What do you want if you have a conversation with a brand? Let's say you need to return something, or you've got a question. We talked a little bit on another episode about a tent, right? Mm-hmm. Calling into that upskilled third party video chat type of call center agent. Yep. What would you guys want if this was your conversation? And David, I'm going to start with you. What would you want that rep to know about you from previous interactions? Like, what do you think would be vital to making sure your experience with a contact center person would be useful, not feel creepy, like all of the above? What data matters to you?
Well, let's stick with the tent one, right? Because my wife is a loyal customer of that brand. I think it's cool to understand what you've purchased there. Mm-hmm. My favorite thing to buy from there are chairs, little foldable ones. We use them at soccer, concerts, and they're all a little bit different, but pretty much the same thing. They're like little ones that fold up. You can put in a backpack. But let's just use that case. I bought a chair and then someone lost it and I'm buying a new one, and it's a little bit different. So I call in and say, hey, I bought this chair. I can't figure it out. And then they look me up. Oh, Carolyn, yeah. Her husband David is calling. Yeah. Do you remember that other chair you bought like 2 years ago and how you unfolded it this way? Here's the difference. It's similar, but instead of opening it, twisting it clockwise, you're like, oh, okay, cool, I got it, right? So they understood that I have another chair that is similar, but it unfolds differently. I think purchase history in that case is really good because you can compare it. And in that case, it's relevant. Mm-hmm. I don't like it in, let's just say like, oh, you bought this chair, that's cool. Does that mean that you're going to go camping this weekend? Hey, we have 50% off. Like that would be different, right? That's upselling. And so I think
so you're going to be out of town?
Yeah, right.
I know where you live.
That's kind of creepy. We all probably get them. When you put something in your cart on a website and you don't buy it and the email comes through, did you forget to purchase this? How do you feel about that? Have you ever bought them?
Never.
I don't think I have either.
Right? Because
I have.
I mean, sometimes some things screw up. I just don't remember doing it.
I've gotten where I've put something in a cart, was distracted, and I got a note, either an email or sometimes if it's a mobile app, they'll send you a notification later on. Hey, this item's still, do you want it? I have found it beneficial from time to time.
Find it. Okay.
Mm-hmm. I don't like it because most of the time it's all about customer experience for me. I go somewhere and I go to check out, and either they've added some sort of fee, like shipping isn't free, and I'm like, oh, never mind, I don't want it that bad. Mm-hmm. Or they don't accept Apple Pay.
So isn't that interesting? It just shows you how each consumer views a situation so differently. David, it's about, well, I was ready to buy, but this fee popped up, or you don't take the method of payment that I want to make. Me, I use it as I know I wanted to buy it. I'm going to just throw it in my cart, and either I'm going to go back. It's almost a wish list, exactly. So, and then if they remind me down the road, I'm like, oh, you know what? I am going to buy that. But just very interesting in two different.
And I tend to take my time when I buy stuff.
Yeah, me too.
It drives my wife insane.
I overanalyze everything.
I absolutely do that too. I don't know if I use it as a wish list, but I have found. Like I get emails from Amazon if I buy golf balls or something from them. I'll get a list of 40 other golf balls on sale that week by other people, and I'm like, I'm never gonna buy this stuff because I'll go do it instantly. But I do see the value in a wish list thing, and I can understand why that, and like you said, I think that's the challenge with brands today is what do you do when thresholds?
What I don't like about it is it's when it's a company I've never bought from before, and I was just on the website. I didn't sign up for an account, and I threw it into a bag or box or whatever
or
to
not
buy.
even thrown in. You just looked at it.
No, I put it in, and then I was gonna buy it, but I didn't submit anything.
Yeah.
And somehow they have my email.
Okay, so see that's a piece I didn't know of your scenario.
That's
because
different.
That's different. If I've given enough information to get that far where I had to get to a cart and I had to put in my email address or set up an account, okay, now I've told you who I am. I've given you more info. But typically when I do the whole wish list thing, it's like, well, just name Target, right? You throw something in there in your cart, and then all of a sudden you'll get something back. Well, they know who I am. They know I shop there all the time. But I see your point
different.
on you've never done business before.
So that's a piece of data, right, that they've got, because you can go on xyz.com, not log in, but they know your IP address.
Yes.
So does that feel good?
That does not feel good.
I don't like it.
I wonder that question, because the three of us live in this space. We talk about customer experience all the time, but you hit it earlier. The variety of people who buy in the world, consumers, is so different that I wonder if some are happy about that, because you get a coupon 2 days later saying, hey, those sunglasses you looked at are now 25% off.
That would be a different approach though, right? Let's say I wanted to buy a chair and I didn't buy it because shipping wasn't free, and I left it in my box, my checkout box. And they emailed me 2 days later and say, hey man, this chair that you were gonna buy, shipping's free now.
What if you didn't put it in your checkout box?
Well, that's different.
That's where I was going.
Yeah.
Those are the thresholds that brands have to figure out, is what is the creepy factor and what is the cost benefit behind doing it? And where and is it the same for David as it is? And so I think let's try to regroup back to data, which is, 5 years ago, we might have had 2 or 3 people looking at some data and trends and stuff like that. But now you have armies and degrees on figuring out propensity to buy scoring and, what should be the next best action. Let's go build AI and machine learning for that. And it's just an interesting evolution where it's gone over the last few years.
Yeah,
we talk
data
about data
scientists were 5-10 years ago, what? Why would they be involved in our business? It was whoever ran customer care was also in charge of looking at the data.
Or who could run SQL statements in a database
exactly.
to figure out something.
Hey, anyone got Microsoft Access? If you remember that tool back in the day, you could dump a bunch of information and try to slice and dice it yourself. Yeah. But Brian, what's interesting on the whole, like the 10 example, it kind of brings the troubleshooting in general, like across any industry. It's always better if who's trying to help you knows more information about the situation to resolve your issue. But then you get into this creepy almost scenario. You look at in cable or satellite, if you've got issues with your equipment and you're trying to troubleshoot that, you don't know what that person's room looks like. You don't know where their receivers are. You don't know where, how they're wired. And would you be able to take the next step to say, oh, I see you have equipment in this room in your house? Back to the example you shared in a previous podcast with this 10 example of you could do video with the person that could show you how to assemble that chair or tent. In this situation, now are you going to let someone come into your house and be able to, on video, to show you what you've been doing, and knowing, and like, hey, I know you have a receiver in this bedroom. It starts to feel a little creepy.
It does, and I think, we have been taught, as this company that we all work for, have been trying to figure out for 10 years the best way to bring all of that data into a central place so that the IVR or the IVA can use it, and the website can use what you did. And it's this idea of this central repository where all of these channels can utilize it and talk to, and it's been a unicorn. Like, it's not as easy as it sounds like. Just build a database and everyone feeds it. But the integrations were tough. The data modeling was tough. Well, not as much anymore. The security was tough. The privacy compliance folks were tough. Like it was always this centralized dream now to have, someone like us do it for them. So that when you did go on the web and you left something in the cart and you called in to talk to a rep about that, the IVA could say, oh, you left your Nikes in the cart. Do you want questions about that? Like that uniformed hyper-personalization database was so hard and still kind of is.
Yeah.
It still kind of is. It's just, I've seen a lot more, and you guys have too, brands building it themselves and then letting the vendors like us integrate with it.
Yeah, it's sort of this centralized digital platform or data platform that now they can expose to all the partners they work with. But now that they've got the data, now's the tough part.
Yeah.
Like, what are you going to do with it?
You had so many brands back then that were really, really smart and ahead of their time that I wish we had a time machine to go put money back into what we were doing, because we could have used that as a product to sell in the space, because everybody needed it.
Yep.
No one knew how to do it, and everyone was kind of scared to be the first ones to do it. But it is such a powerful technology anymore when it comes to customer experience.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, I think like the customers that we work with, the partners we work with, the way they ask questions about data, you can tell what their goals are aligned to. Like, is it guest experience? Like, do I really just want my guests to have a frictionless interaction with me? Or am I trying to squeeze as much money out of each customer as I can? And look, we're happy to help either way, but I think it's really fun whenever you find experiences that you as a consumer would actually enjoy too, right? Because then you get in a way where you're collaborating with customers and suggesting things based on the knowledge and experience that we have, right?
Random question, back to some of the privacy stuff. Would you want to know what a brand has on you? Like, have you ever had a desire to say, I want to pull on this privacy law and find out what XYZ's got on me, like Google?
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Or any of these, anybody in general?
I think it goes back to, I just accept the fact they have all this
I'm
information.
with you.
Honestly, I don't know. It's almost like
I don't want to know.
See no evil, hear no evil. I just don't even want to
Where
know.
I go to it is if I can see it, that means that someone else can see it, which means that like it could be used if someone who shouldn't
Nefarious.
have my data wants my data.
Yeah, bad actor, nefarious stuff. Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, I feel like we could talk about data all day long because it could be used in so many different ways. I think my favorite is, as I've said a gazillion times through these episodes, is just understand who I am, why I'm calling, and try to predict my next step.
And it's for the best interest of me, your consumer, versus you, the company.
Right.
It's just good to note that as a consumer, you have the ability to really truly find out what folks have on you, right? So even if you don't want to know, it is nice that knowing that there are safeguards out there that you can go ask for that data to understand what they've got, so you can do with it how you please. I just don't know if it'll ever go away.
Yeah.
Like once it's on the internet, it stays forever.
And a thing to remember as a business is if you do what's right by your customers, they will be loyal and they will return the favor and spend more money with you, right? If you treat me right, even if you make a mistake, I talked about the hat company in the past. Something went wrong. They're like, yeah, our bad. We'll fix it, right? So they took a bad and turned it into a really good thing. They said, sorry, your hat had an issue. And they almost no questions asked. They asked me for an order number and my shipping address and sent it back. So they took a bad into an amazing thing and created a loyal customer who now owns 10 of those hats.
Well, so this is probably along the lines of data, but as you get into holidays and things like that, you start reading articles about companies now that if they ship you the wrong thing or you want to return it, it doesn't fit, they just tell you, keep it.
Well,
and so it's made to feel like, oh, that's really nice of them, but the data is telling them it's cheaper for me to just let you keep it versus all the process of returning it. So they're positioning it as it's good for you when, it's good for the company. It
lowers the risk of leaving and being a loyal customer
Absolutely,
for a long time.
yeah.
And we talked a little bit today about the scary parts of data, but in almost every company I've ever talked to, they all want to use the data for good.
Yeah.
It's just, for me, it's about understanding what I want, making it easier for me, and knowing that you're going to have a lot about me. Just make sure you use it for a good cause.
It's the pushiness factor.
Yeah.
How pushy are you going to be with me based on what you know about me?
We talk every day in the news is ransomware and data breaches and everything else, right? So all of us have this fear, but once you said it best, David, like it's going to be there. It's not going to go away.
Yep.
It's just going to be different.
Eric, your example just reminded me of an in-person experience I just had that could have gone that way.
Mm-hmm.
I was in New York over the weekend for celebrating birthdays in my family, and we went to breakfast, and my girls ordered waffles, and we asked for the sweets on the side, like syrup and all this other stuff. And whenever it came to the table, all of the stuff was on the waffle. And the guy said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I know you asked for it." And then he took this waffle, which they're probably either going to eat in the back or like throw away, back. And then we had to wait another 10 minutes for a new waffle.
Yeah.
So then my wife and I are eating. The girls, who are the most important people, right? Like you want to keep the kids entertained at a meal, are now waiting an extra 10 minutes where if they just say, our bad, we messed up this waffle, keep this one, I'll bring you a new one.
Yep.
Now everyone's like, yeah, no worries. They're gonna, maybe we'll pull some stuff. They can eat part of it. It's the same thing with that we've sent you the wrong thing. Data says if these people are happy, they will order another Bloody Mary or more coffee or something else versus now they've waited for 10 minutes, they're upset, and they just want to get out of here as soon as possible.
And then you're going back to the kitchen saying expedite this order versus, hey, they're eating, but we got to get them a new order as well.
So what you're referencing is more consumer trends versus personalization trends. There absolutely is two different spectrums there. It's, does a consumer business whatever be better for this, or does a personalization, human, one person, one group, one experience be better for that? You gotta pay attention to both.
Yeah.
I think we're at time. This was good. I thought it was. Next time let's bring somebody in to talk about data because the three of us live in it in partial worlds.
Yeah, we know some data scientists.
We know some great data people.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. We'll see you next time. Like, subscribe, and comment. We still need feedback. We still want topics. Thanks again.
I am David Ariza, here with Eric Robeson and my main man, Brian Brimmer. Thanks for joining us. I just thought of Ology. My main man.
My BFF.
Let's restart that.
Blooper reel.
I was trying not to laugh too.